So now we understand a little bit about how Postman works and how to use it to pull data out of the Mist dashboard, or I guess the Mist API. You don't even need the dashboard for it. Let's do something fun with Python. So let's do the same thing that we had. I'm going to use Python. I like using Postman rather. I like using Postman and Python together so that I can see the data and what I want to do with it in Postman, and then I can kind of translate that out to Python. So basically, let's open. So I use Visual Studio Code. I like this IDE a lot because it's got IntelliSense. So when I start typing something, it will it'll try to finish what you're saying, what your thought, or give you options. But technically, you use whatever you want for Python. However you like to use Python is fine. If you just want to do it in a text file because you're a madman, more power to you. But anyway, so let's use my get sites. So this is from our intro to API examples get request. Hopefully you kind of have an understanding of how all this stuff works. But we're going to use this. I'm going to hit send just to make sure it still works. And this is all of our sites on our lab instance of Mist. So there's a lot of information in here. So let's say that we wanted to get to that in a way that isn't just all at once, and we just want pieces of this stuff. So if we go into our IDE here, I'm going to do a new file and say get sites.py. Then just make sure it works. Print hello. Because you never know. Okay, so there's our response. That's cool. So now I'm going to go back into Python, or keep mixing those up. I'm going to go back into Postman and hit code. And so now I'm going to copy and paste because I'm a cheater. I'm going to copy and paste this out of here, put it in here, hit save, and then we're going to run this just to make sure it works. Okay, that's a bajillion sites. So we're going to, if you look at this, basically this is exactly what's happening in Postman right here. So Python has an import JSON. So natively, it's got the ability to mess with JSON text or context or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to import that, and then instead of just spitting out everything, we're going to comment that out, so that way when we hit run, it's still doing all this, but the last part, it's just not spitting the rest of it out. And so now we're going to say JSON output equals, and then we're going to actually load the data that we got from that same data. We're going to load it into a JSON format, or a format that Python understands as JSON. So we're going to say JSON loads, and then data. And so if you want to Google this stuff, so Google, if you're kind of rusty on Python, look up list, dictionaries, arrays. If you want to just look up this JSON import, you can do that. There's a lot of different options in here. But the way that we're using it, I won't go over all that stuff, but the way that we're using it, let's just say print JSON output now. And see what I mean, how it tries to finish what you're thinking. I like that a lot because sometimes I don't know exactly what I want, and this thing is nice to help me out with it. So let me get some white space in here and hit go. Boom. So this is the same amount of information as before, so it looks completely the same, right? But the cool thing about this now is I can put this thing in brackets, and I can say 0. And what is that going to do? So because this is a dictionary, I want the 0 element of this dictionary. And so now you can see that it only outputted one thing. And so if we look at one highway, however you want to identify this thing, if you go back into Postman, you can see one highway. So this is this element right here. So basically, if you look at this bracket, you follow this line all the way down to here, that's all this information. So all this stuff is pretty cool, right? So let's say I want to get even more granular than that. Let's say that I want to put the address. I want to just output the address of element 0. So let's do that. So now if I do that, then I can say, I can't remember if I have to put this in quotes or not. So address. Let's see. Okay, cool. So that actually worked. So I'm going to do it again so you can get all the other garbage out of the way. So now we have one highway, 71 south, blah, 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 right? So now what I'm telling it is I want element 0, which is just this information. We're going to copy this, Put it in here. And then inside here, we can do whatever we want now. So let's say that I want to get the name of it. So if I say name in Python instead of address, name, and hit go. So now we got warehouse building 0015, and you can see in here name warehouse building 0015. So you can do some interesting things here now because it's formatted in a way that you can basically zoom in and out of each of these elements. You can do like a loop, and you can loop through all these things if you want to find something, or if you want to change one specific thing on a batch of these things, you can do that. Same thing with if you want to start chaining these requests together. Like let's say that you want to get something particular. Like let's say in here I had a use case for getting the ID of each one of these things. So for whatever reason I want to get the ID of these things and I want to match it, or I want to delete it, or I want to do something. The first step in that would be to iterate through each one of these elements, ID, and you would just put a for loop in here. For instead of 0, you would just make it a loop and loop through this element right here and output or save all the IDs. I would hit go, and if I found something, now this is the information that it found. And let's go up. Dunk. Okay, so same information, right? So now we can really dig these things apart and change whatever we need to change, or do whatever we need to do. I might make a video on how to loop through all these and do whatever, but hopefully this is this is pretty good for the beginnings of how you start translating the Mist API output in JSON to something that is useful in a way that you can take and you can manipulate in a very specific to your need way. But anyway, I hope that helped. I will see you in the next one.